G'day, I'm Scott Phillips, the Motley Fool's Chief Investment Officer in Australia, and welcome to a kinda brand new YouTube series, what we're calling What I've Been Reading. Now, if you've been a YouTube subscriber of ours, or if you've been just simply watch the channel every now and again, you'll know we used to have a feature called Our Favourite Investment Books. Turns out we kind of started running out of books. So what we thought we'd do is we still want to bring you some good stuff, and we know our viewers love the kind of, give me something to read, tell me about something. This feature is going to be effectively replacing that. We're not going to limit ourselves to just investing books. Now, they can be investing related. Don't worry, I'm not going to start reviewing fiction. So investing related books, but also it could be articles or just stuff that's kind of on our mind, stuff that's been around. Hey, here's an interesting thing I read. Let's talk about it. So that's what this is going to be, this series. About once a fortnight, we're hoping to bring you one of these. We usually probably go live about Saturday, about lunchtime, probably on YouTube. So again, the best way to make sure you get it, please like the video if you like it. Darius is great, by the way. I promise you're going to like it. So like the video, hit the subscribe button so you do get notified. But most importantly, the notification bit comes with a little bell, little notification bell near the bottom of the screen, just under me here somewhere. Click on that, and that way YouTube will notify you when we drop new stuff. So we're revitalizing this one. We're also bringing back Stock of the Month and Stocks in Focus. So lots of great stuff coming to the YouTube channel. We're kicking it off this week. Hopefully every week, every single week, we'll have something being published on the channel, at least one thing. Yeah, lots of good stuff. So please be mindful, probably some live Q&As, that sort of stuff. So you want to be here and you want to be notified when we bring you this great stuff, because the guys put a lot of effort into it. I just sit here and ask hopefully half intelligent questions they send me. Otherwise, they are the stars of the show. And speaking of stars of the show, g'day, Darius Zarghami.
Good morning, Scott.
Mate, it's great to have you on. And we've talked about this book separately, actually. We talked to you, you brought it to us as a team, and it was fascinating. You prompted me to download it and actually listen to it on Audible. So I want to tell, firstly, what is the book and who's it by?
The book I've brought to you again is Willpower, Rediscovering the Greatest Human Strength. It's by John Tierney and Roy Baumeister. I'm hoping to pronounce that correctly.
I'm sure we got pretty close. Go for it.
It's a science-based exploration of self-control, and I guess the best way to strengthen your self-control. I really like it because it's not your typical investing book. I don't think they mention investing at all throughout the book.
Yeah.
But you can still draw a number of investing related, I guess, queries and things from the book still. It's also a really quick read and provides heaps of really interesting examples, experiments. It backs everything up with science and all that good stuff. So.
Yeah, very, very well written, very enjoyable to read, and really informative as well. Now, I'm going to ask you the $64 question, but also the most obvious question. I think we all think we know what willpower is. And maybe we do, maybe we don't. But you tell us, from the book and from your understanding, what is willpower?
Yeah, so I guess from the book's perspective, when they start the book, they say psychologists have isolated two personal qualities that I guess indicate success or future positive outcomes for people. And they isolated those as intelligence and self-control. And self-control and willpower are largely, they're interchangeable terms. They both mean essentially the same thing. But willpower, it's actually, you can think of it very much like a muscle, but it's more of a mental muscle than a physical muscle. So when you go to the gym, you might do a bunch of different reps of different machines, and you're strengthening your muscles at the gym. But when you walk away from the gym, you might find opening a door is a lot harder. Some people, I hear people often talk about leg day, and they say the next day their legs are just feeling like jelly. That's because you've worked that muscle a lot, and so it's now depleted and it's weakened. Willpower works much the same way, except as a mental muscle.
That's cool. So we can improve it, but it also gets depleted. So that's kind of, there's both those things to kind of have a chat about. Let's do those in that order then. How do we strengthen our willpower? I mean, obviously, intelligence you're kind of born with, and I guess you can work on your intelligence a little bit, but it's kind of innate. I imagine some people just naturally have more willpower, more self-control than others. But the book does say you can actually strengthen your willpower.
Yeah, so I think that the easiest ways, and the ways that most people probably already are strengthening their willpower, is through good diet and exercise. Those things require self-control you have to think about those things, right? No one just exercises without thinking about it generally. But the more interesting way of actually strengthening your willpower is by overpowering your body's and your mind's natural inclination. So
Mm.
one way that they've suggested one way the book has suggested rather to improve your willpower is to improve your posture first and foremost. And I'm actually going to think about that now and set up properly. Try
I'm
to
just
improve my
straight up.
self-control a little bit.
So why
um,
posture? What's that about?
so it's all about doing something your mind wouldn't ordinarily think about. It's
Mm.
about overcoming what your mind wants to do. So overcoming the temptation to slouch
Mm.
is strengthening it through. I guess when you're overcoming that temptation, you're exercising your willpower, and by exercising it, just like an ordinary muscle, you're strengthening it.
Right. Now, that's the upside. Let's talk about the willpower leg day.
Yeah.
Um, at some point, if the willpower's all gone, is it harder to make good decisions? What does that look like? How does it get depleted? And I guess what do we do about it?
Yeah. So it is, as you mentioned, getting depleted by predominantly decision making. Everyone has heaps of decisions they need to make throughout the day. So many different temptations that you need to resist. Do you eat cookies? Do you eat radishes? And actually, one really interesting example, or one interesting experiment rather, that they used in the book was they studied a number of different judges in the Middle East who were presiding over very similar cases, and they
Mm.
looked at what factors determined whether those judges would release someone or deny someone their parole. And the main factor that actually influenced the judge's decision wasn't something like race or the crime they committed or something like that, the length of their remaining sentence. It was actually the time of day. So judges that
Right.
presided over a case at, say, 8 a.m. or 1 p.m. were much more likely to release a criminal than those that presided over a case at, say, 11 a.m., so just before lunch, or 3 p.m., 4 p.m., just before the end of the day. And that
Right.
was because those judges have been making many, many decisions without replenishing their stock of willpower through food, lunch, morning tea,
Mm, mm,
breakfast.
mm.
And so, as a I guess suggestion to those judges, what they ended up doing was implementing a mandatory morning tea halfway through the day, mandatory afternoon tea. And what that meant was the judges were more likely to make the harder decision of releasing the criminal and approving their parole. Because it's a much harder decision to approve someone's parole, I think, than it is to keep them in prison. They're less risky, I suppose, in that decision.
That's fascinating, mate. That's cool. So a bit of break and a cup of tea for good decisions, which I guess takes
Yeah.
me to, and you kind of already mentioned this, but I mean, this is largely a science book. It's self-help. It's all that sort of stuff. From an investing lens, what did you take away from it in terms of ways that maybe we can improve our investing, our viewers can improve their investing? What does Willpower have to teach us about that?
Yeah, well, when I think about investing, I think of it, it's a very emotional pursuit. It's not meant to be. We should be thinking very rationally and not with our
Hmm.
emotions, but it is a very emotional thing. Money is very emotional. And it also requires a lot of decision making, a lot of very hard decisions when you're looking at a company, when you're deciding whether to pull the trigger on actually buying the company. So many decisions go into that.
Mm.
And for us, especially, it's a really long process. It's a drawn out process where we look into so many different elements of a company that we can be doing that for hours at a time and then get to the end point only to not pull the trigger because we're tired, perhaps. So I guess the way I think about it is if I have to make a difficult decision about whether to buy a company, whether to sell a company, I tend to eat before I make that decision. I rest before I make that decision. I leave it overnight if I can. Maybe I'll take a walk to separate the emotion and the decision fatigue that I might be experiencing from that decision. But a practical thing that any investor can do, if you struggle with making the decision to buy a company, making the decision to put money into the market, something I've realized is a really great, really practical thing you can do is dollar cost averaging. And so what that does is it turns your investing into a habit. And habits don't take, once a habit is formed, it doesn't take any willpower to actually use that habit and do what the habit is wanting you to do. And it also takes the emotional element out of investing. So for those that don't know, dollar cost averaging instead of putting all of your money into the market at once and making a really difficult decision to invest a lot of money, you break your money down into smaller amounts, smaller, more manageable chunks. So say if you wanted to invest $10,000, you'd break it down into $2,000 chunks spread out over weeks or months. And you're also saying to yourself immediately, you're making a pre-commitment that buy, you will buy shares. You're taking the thought process out of it. You're saying, I will buy shares and I will do it at these specific times. And that really helps with overcoming the biases associated with willpower.
That's super cool. It reminds me, you were talking about pre-commitment. Reading Willpower and Nudge, I think, side by side is probably a very, very good idea. Learning the science of what's going on and also some ways to kind of overcome our natural human biases and tendencies, I think, are pretty important. Mate, that's a great summary of Willpower. Hopefully, it reminds me, by the way, our team meetings normally just start mid-morning and finish at lunchtime. Maybe we should move them to after lunch or mandate a morning tea. We'll have to work out whether we reschedule that. In the meantime, mate, thank you for bringing us Willpower by Roy Baumeister and John Tierney. Thank you for sharing your expertise with us. I look forward to more and more of these. Again, one last plug. Please make sure you do like this video because Darius is a good guy. He's presenting some great content. That's worth a like. But also subscribe to the channel so you see him and our other star analysts in the weeks and months and hopefully years ahead on the channel. And of course, hit the alerts bell so you'll be notified when we drop new good stuff. All right, mate. Thank you for spending some time with us. Thank you, as I said, for sharing the expertise. Thank you, viewers, for watching. Thanks for being part of this brave new re-experiment of getting ourselves back on YouTube. Until we speak again, so long.